Am I on? Okay, we're on.
No.
Good evening, everybody. Last week, Kevin, it's his fault. We didn't do this last week, but anyway,
you were the sick one.
We like Kevin, so we're going to forgive him this time.
It was your fault.
And we're late tonight because of Kevin.
Yeah,
Abnormal Alabama. His Haunted Dolls. Oh.
My Haunted Dolls.
MyHauntedDolls.com. Kevin Kane. YouTube. The websites.com. And then I guess do you have Facebook, My Haunted Dolls?
Yeah, My Haunted Dolls on Facebook.
Instagram, Twitter.
There is on Instagram, but it's got because somebody else says when I've got one's my_haunted_dolls, something like that.
Okay.
On Instagram. I don't think people can find it.
Oh, TikTok. You use TikTok? Oh, that's fun. I love TikTok. Some people don't like it, but I think it's neat. Anyway, you can find him. You can just go to Google or whatever search engine, type in Kevin Kane, My Haunted Dolls. He's got videos out the dolls' butts.
Just go to myhauntedolls.com.
All the above.
Page. Yeah, you're gonna pick on her back.
These girls that work here, they're all teenagers, I think, and they're scared to death of these dolls. What happened to her dog? Oh, it's right here.
That's right.
Okay.
You can't
I'm
see
lost. All right, so here we are. Kevin's going to talk to us about the dog.
Oh, you want to talk about Tony?
Okay, you don't have to.
I'll go ahead and talk about him. Good old Tony. Put her right up there. This dog winks sometimes, so you might see her wink her eye. She did it to me on the way here tonight. And she's a vintage chatty Cathy doll. I think 60s, maybe early 1970s is when this one came out. And her cord, she doesn't have a cord anymore, so she doesn't talk. Or at least the doll doesn't, but the spirit is a little bit chatty. In fact, I did a little spirit box on the way here.
Now, just a curious question. I know Cherie's got that one room, that's that bedroom set up to repair dolls. Do you ever get into any repairs?
She repaired one of mine.
Oh, did she?
I've got another one I'm going to take next time that needs the head sewn back on. And, but Tony is a little girl. I think she was around 11. I got 6 and 11 out of spirit box, but her voice sounded like an older child, like 11.
Now, where'd this one come
from? She was sick. This came from Angie Calvin Miller, aka AJ, of AJ's Haunted Dolls, and she has a house full like Cherie. She had a couple of rooms full of dolls, and I've got a few of hers. She's the one I got. Robin, the one that's the little baby. The little baby doll that I got on my YouTube that said, Kevin, I love you. And then also the one that I pulled the cord and it said, feed me, Kevin.
See, this one, you got to know when these are evil spirits because Kevin, I love you. That's got to be an evil spirit.
Oh, come on. That's a sweet spirit.
Can you have her pull string fixed?
That's why
it's possible. Yeah. Then you got to wonder, is the little box working in there? I don't know.
You can replace it. You can order them. You know that, right? Yeah.
Yes, I know that, right?
There's so many people. Well, the thing is, I never knew until I started hanging around this guy that so many people are in it. I knew, dolls. My sister was into Barbie dolls, and she'd made doll houses, by the way. And I'm talking about from scratch. But anyway, I never knew so many people were into these stinking dolls.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there, and there's people that. Some people get overly curious and plunge head first into it, and I always recommend if you're going to do something like this, be a paranormal investigator first and learn from other investigators how to deal with spirits before you go plunging into this, because these are serious items and they need serious care.
Away from the paranormal a moment, I assume that there's an educational process you go through that you've learned the value and collectability of certain dolls. Taking the paranormal totally out of it, it's like, ooh, this is a rare doll.
Yeah, I've learned some because there's people that'll go on eBay. I saw one today for $10,000.
What kind of doll was that?
It didn't look very old. It might have come out in the 40s or 50s. And
Why
they're
do they
saying
make
it's
it-
haunted.
Oh, yeah.
And they're wanting 10,000, telling me it's rare, and
Mhm.
it's first time I've seen the doll, but it doesn't look something that would be $10,000. I mean,
Not to you anyway.
yeah, no, I wouldn't spend that much money. That's what you got to watch out for them, is these sellers that they're claiming
Well-
it's haunted, and it really isn't, and they just want your money.
Well, you know, Annabelle.
Mhm.
Okay. Of course, that originally belonged to the Warrens.
Mhm.
The Warrens both died, and I think it was their nephew or somebody.
Their the son-in-law,
Yeah.
Tony Sparrow.
The friend of ours, David Merlin, is
Mhm.
friends of this guy that you're talking about.
Yeah, Tony Sparrow.
And he has turned down big money just to take it on tour.
Mhm.
He just don't want to do it for whatever reason. I guess he don't need the money. But also, and I hate to burst people's bubbles, but it's like some of these dolls they've built up so much,
Mhm.
but nobody's ever really seen them do anything. You know, they build these stories that,
Yeah,
and I know what we've seen. You know, I mean,
I know I've heard about Robert the doll down in Key West.
oh
the
yeah,
museum. I've never really heard anybody say they've seen him move in that case, but
No.
they swear up and down, if you're gonna take a picture, you gotta ask him first or he'll curse you. And there have been people that said, oh, I went home, I was sick, my car wrecked, and blah, blah, blah. But I've heard a lot of people say, well, I took a picture and nothing happened.
yeah.
And so
You know-
they build it up to where it's this huge urban legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might have been something eerie happened with it, but they blow it up and make it into a
So-
demonic spawn from hell.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And
Yeah, I'm
And
with you.
9 times out of 10, 99.999% of the time, let's read, they're not evil spirits.
Well,
Yeah.
but here's the point, is that there are some strange things that happen with some of these dolls. I have witnessed it firsthand in the office over there, right?
yeah,
So, and then I've heard some of your EVPs. I don't think, I hope I'm right, that you're faking this like Huff Paranormal does.
he's got Kobe Bryant out
Oh,
there.
I saw that. Him and his buddy, he's got a buddy that does Hope Paranormal. And he's got Kobe Bryant. You can predict it. You
I know
know?
every time a celebrity dies, they're on his spot.
That's it, boom. But
He's had birth
right the
panels.
day after Kobe Bryant got killed in that wreck, out of curiosity, I went to the latest video that Huff Paranormal put out. And he's just doing what they want because every single post was Kobe Bryant just got killed. He's a famous basketball player, Kobe Bryant. You need to talk to Kobe Bryant. So all these, he's got 1 million freaking
Yeah, I
subscribers.
can't do that. I don't want to sit there and do it based on tricking people.
Well, you don't have to, but I'm going to. I need money. I'm tired of playing around. Like I'm getting serious. But I have. Do you have some more? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no! I didn't tell her story. From what I understand, AJ never did send me the story. In fact, it's weird how I got this because I had originally the doll I was adopting was a totally different doll from her. But when the package came, Tony was in there, and I messaged her. I said, "Now, wait a minute, this isn't the doll." She goes, "Uh-oh, your doll." I think the name was Chris or Megan was the name of that doll. Oh, it went to somebody else. I'm sorry, but if you want to go ahead and keep her, and I'll send you her story. I spent a little time with her, and I felt like she really wanted to stay with me. So I said, okay, I'll keep her. I'm not out anything. But AJ never sent me the story, but it's weird how that happens.
Mhm.
There have been times when, I don't know, it was AJ or it might have been Cherie has tried to, adopt out a doll, and they'll ship it, and it keeps coming back. And finally, they're like, okay, I guess they don't want to leave.
Oh, it's not that. It's like Kevin Kane. No.
And she hadn't had any for me that have gone back, but this one apparently wanted to come to my house. I had looked at it and I kept looking and I said, no, the other one has my interest.
How
But I was
long?
wrong.
How long you got?
I want to say that was 2015.
Oh, you've been
so
there a
5
while,
years.
yeah.
I've been doing this for 7 years now. But her story is that, for what I can get from her, she said on the spirit box tonight, she was trying to talk and she was saying that I thought her say 11. And she,
Oh, wait a minute. You did a spirit box for her tonight?
Yeah.
Did you record it?
No, I was on the way here.
Oh, jeez.
So I can't
You
record the
you
drive.
can make stuff up. At least Huff Paranormal records
I
your
don't
stuff.
want to do that.
You don't want to record your stuff?
I do, but this was a last minute thing. I said, I went to look for her
If you're
story.
gonna be in this, you gotta
Oh.
always be ready. The buttons are pushed, ready to go. It's like, oh,
This from Mr. I'm gonna let y'all talk tonight at the last minute. But,
okay.
yeah, I thought I had her story in there, so I wouldn't worry about it because I thought it was in the binder and I couldn't find it. And I realized AJ never sent it to me. AJ,
And what's her name?
her name is Tony. I know
Tony.
that. And but she did on the way here. I asked her, could she tell me something about herself? And I kept picturing this little girl with short hair sitting on the floor trying to stand up. And she kept, on the spirit box, she kept saying ribs, ribs. And I said, was it hard for you to breathe? And she said, yes. And she kept making me feel like she had been ill with something. And that's why she died.
Coronavirus.
Or it could have been a drowning. I don't know. But she did say that this dog belonged to her and her dad bought it for her. So
the next, so you still gotta get a story out of this.
yeah, I'm gonna message AJ again and see if
All right, so your spirit box thing, I assume you're using an app on your phone then?
yeah,
Which one are
and
you
be
using?
careful with apps, y'all. The ones I've got are what Kim Johnston is using our investigations.
Okay, tell me which ones you got.
Sono X12 Ghost Box.
Okay, let me
And
try.
then I don't know if it's free
How do
now.
I spell it?
Sono SONO. And then X12.
There it is, it's on X12. I got X10. X12 must be the,
And
so which one do I do?
let's see, it should look, the icon should look like that. Sono X12. Unless they've changed it.
So X12, Ghost. Let me just finish
Yeah,
writing
go ahead
it
and
down.
put a ghost box in it now.
Ghost box, the free version, okay.
Yeah, try that and see if it'll come up. Shoot.
Just change it. Have you got the paid version or?
I did. It was like $2 one time, and that's it. But when
You know
Kim
what?
used it, I wonder is that it? Maybe it's different.
That says
Yeah.
SGK1. That's not it.
No.
Yours says Sony. So, just make sure I spelled it right.
Sono SONO. I'm pulling it up here. Takes it a second.
So bear with us, I'm getting an education.
Yeah,
here.
educate. Here we go. It was free. Sono
Sono.
X12.
Okay, let me, Ghost Box free, and then it doesn't come up with X12 anywhere. And you got an Android phone, right?
Yeah, and when I got it off Google Play Store.
What's where? Oh, wait a minute. Okay, all right. Let me go to Google Play. I'm in the different place. So let me go to Google Play Store. Right here. That's Google Pay.
Oh.
No, I don't want Google Pay.
What are you looking for?
Play. We'll find it. It's not there, is it?
It should say Play Store or Google.
Oh, okay. That's where I was. Play Store.
Oh.
Okay.
Let's see if it comes up on-
Sono, SONO, right?
Sono X12. And maybe it's not on here anymore. Yeah, I don't see it on my search anymore. I've had it for a few years.
So what's another one?
There is another one I have. I don't know if it's still, and it's working with me. I've got some interesting stuff.
Well, I've got a couple on here, and I lost my little radio thing. It's somewhere, but
Yeah. There's this has worked with me. PSV 77 Spirit Box.
okay, let me look for that. Bear with me, folks.
And that's
P is in Paul.
yeah,
S
SV.
V
This might be the one that had 77.
77.
There it is.
Spirit
Spirit Box.
I have Hack Shack.
Okay, is that it? Which one? That says Hack Shack.
They may have replaced. I've had these a few years. They may have
Okay,
replaced
so they've updated. So that's gotta be.
Yeah.
Does that say Hack Shack or
It's ITC Paranormal.
this is not ICT?
Yeah, this is one.
Okay, which one you got over there?
Hack Shack.
The one that was on top,
Mm-hmm.
Here's
X8?
Yep.
Okay, I've got,
here's PSV,
which I can find, it's no longer there.
and then the Sono takes out the static. Here's the Sono.
And so, oh, that's cool. But unfortunately, as cool as it is, it's not around.
Yeah. I'm glad I still have them. those are the only two I've used where at least it was a legitimate investigator who created them. Because some of these are just toy apps. You get something fake.
Oh, yeah.
They've got Ouija board apps. That,
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see. I'm going to show you the ones I've got. I got a reason for talking about this. I want to tell you in a minute.
okay. And these were ad free. You got to worry about those ad ones. They're just.
Oh, yeah.
Looking
Okay, let's see. I even got a voice changer. When I was playing around with trying to imitate Huff Paranormal, I got these apps to where I could mock him. Just using these different apps.
You record and playback, or you do it live?
Yeah, right here you do it. Let's go. Kevin Kane. Oh. Kevin Kane. Kevin Kane. All right, then you go through here and figure out which one.
That sounds like a
Did you
decent.
say IPC box was one of them?
Well, ITC, they made the PS.
See, now that one sounds like almost like the paranormal stuff.
The PSV 77 box. Yeah, that sounds like something out of it. What's that alien ones?
Backwards. I mean, people I say there's nothing you can't do on a phone.
That
anymore.
backward, that sounds like that one I used to have. What's it called? The Portal?
Yeah. Here we go, extraterrestrial.
I
Oh, it's got a bunch of them. That even sounds like a paranormal stuff, don't it? Here we you'll like this one. Chipmunk.
What
Okay.
about that helium up there?
The one that sounds like helium?
The
Oh, no. All right. We're having too much fun here, folks.
we've lost our audience.
Oh, boy. So that is voice changer. Where are we up here? And you can take these apps. Unfortunately, there's so much you can manipulate and fool people. And that's why you got to be careful what you believe. So I've got, and I'm looking for a couple of apps I've used for this. I think it's on here. There's Hack Shack I just got, but I thought it was on this phone.
Excuse me.
Where? Oh, here it is, the Portal.
That's what I was talking about. It sounds like a backwards voice on them.
This is one that I'll turn on. Okay, it's not working.
Is the volume up on it?
Yeah.
Sometimes I had to turn my volume up. Well,
Not working.
uh-oh. I don't know if I still have it or not. I had the Portal.
Okay.
I used to have the portal.
And it
Okay.
sounds like a bunch of
Well,
witches talking backwards.
Anyway, there's a lot of different apps.
Here
Like
it
that.
is.
You got it. But see if yours is working, my guy.
Let's
Here's
see.
the ITC box.
You found it?
Yep.
Okay. What's it
It's
called?
different from mine.
What's it called?
ITC box.
Oh, there it is.
Hello.
Is it the Spain Paranormal or the Box 2 or what?
I did Spain Paranormal.
Yeah, mine's not working either.
It must have just, that was, you know who created that? Huff Paranormal.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm gonna take it off my phone.
That's why it's not working anymore.
I'm gonna install it because it ain't working.
Yeah, so yours didn't work either.
Uh-uh.
Okay, so ITC. Ooh, yeah.
It said Kevin several times.
Oh, this has even got a camera, so you can take pictures as you're going through. Whoa! God. Oh, that was scary.
That's what I need, one with a camera.
That's an ITC.
I'll have to get that one.
ITC Box Spain Paranormal. the scanning. I don't know what all this stuff is. Trigger. Oh, it's got the echo. Oh, here we go. That's kind of like what paranormal does. You know? So that's a pretty cool app there.
Yeah, because I'm recording it with the camera.
So this is ITC box, Spain Paranormal, and we're gonna play around with this a little bit. I want to do something real quick. I want to talk about something. God, I stopped it and it's still going.
You have to hit the back button.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. That's pretty neat. Okay. Let me see what this is real quick. Bear with me a second. All right. Here we go. So, everybody, you like ghost hunting? Do you enjoy going out and doing these investigations?
Yeah, I like to do it.
There's something, and I started to do this actually years ago and just get distracted and never follow through with it because people go to abandoned buildings and all this stuff, okay, and old mausoleums and, you know, what I've never seen anybody do, and I think I want to make it our specialty besides dogs, is everywhere you go, you see the little crosses on the side of the road where people have killed. Have you seen anybody do that?
Go to the crosses?
Yeah, to where somebody got killed, side of the road.
One over here
They're everywhere.
in the Narrows where that lady and I think a trucker ran into her. And,
Because wouldn't that be interesting?
yeah.
Because you know for a fact it's not just urban legend, it's like that's there. And you can, usually there's a name, usually you can go back through records and find it is factual, it's not, you know, like, 100 years ago, somebody got murdered, you know, this is verifiable, bona fide stuff, and I've never seen anybody, I mean, everybody wants to go where somebody died to do a ghost hunting, and nobody's going and doing these little spots alongside the road where people got killed. So, is that worth pursuing?
Might be, yeah. Just see what happens.
Okay. All right, well, we just downloaded a bunch of apps, and you want to share, what's this we got here? You got several books.
Oh, yeah, you said break some scary stories, so I brought some.
Restless, can I see Restless Dead?
Restless Dead. Ghost tales from around the world. Some of these are ones I've shared on my podcast. And
he's got a picture of what's her name on here?
oh, the Ghost Binder. Yeah, I was using it as a bookmark when I was doing my reading.
Ooh, look here, A Ride for a Corpse.
That's the one I've. Have I shared that on here before?
I don't think so.
You want me to tell him?
Okay, go.
Yeah.
You want me to read one and then you read one? You want to come back
Yeah,
forward?
if you
Or
want
do you want me to just shut up and let you ride with it for the next hour?
I don't care if you want to read one, or I'll read it if you want me to.
Okay, we do have to cut off. This is an hour and a half show now because we're at the mercy of these people here. All right, I'll read this one real quick and then I'll shut up and you can find which one you want to read. Here.
Okay.
This one is called A Ride for a Corpse, and it is found in a book called Restless Dead. And I imagine if I was dead, I'd be restless too.
Yeah.
By Daniel Cohen.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
great.
Ghostly Tales from Around the World. This is not just Alabama, this is not just the United States. This is, in fact, the one I'm going to read from Turkey.
Or turkey gobble gobble.
Okay. This is for chapter 3 of Restless Dead. And this is the first Tuesday of February of 2020. And the other day was 2/2/2020. You know that, right? 2/2/2020.
That was Sunday. Right?
Yeah.
22020220.
Yeah, there you go. So in Turkey, they tell this ghostly little tale. There was a young man who set out on a long trip on horseback. So we know we're going back a few years. The trip was to take him through country that was unknown to him. The trip turned out to be longer and more difficult than he had expected. By the third day, he was already well behind the schedule he had set for himself. We have that happen all the time. Then he was delayed practically the entire day on business. In order to make up for some of the lost time, the young man decided that he would have to ride through the night. He knew a night ride would be difficult, but he was strong and vigorous, and he had ridden all night before. He started out just before sunset. It was almost completely dark when the young man found himself passing a cemetery.
Ah,
There, sitting on stone by the side of the road, was a girl about 16 or 17, and she was crying. The young horseman could not pass by so sad and appealing a figure. He stopped and asked her what was wrong. The girl sobbed out a story of how she had to get to a distant town by the next morning, but she was already too tired, so tired, that she could not possibly make the trip, particularly at night. The young man, feeling very gallant, offered to take her. My journey takes me past that very town, he said. My horse is strong and fresh. He can carry both of us. Tearfully, the girl thanked him. He hoisted her up to the saddle and climbed up behind her so that he could hold her. He grasped the girl firmly by the waist and spurred his horse. The horse galloped off with a surprising burst of speed. They rode through the night. The young man's horse, instead of tiring and slowing down, seemed to go faster and faster. It was almost as if the horse was driven by some unknown but powerful terror. When the young man tried to rein his horse in to slow it, he was not able to do so. Something even stranger was happening. The girl riding in front of him did not say a word, though he tried to talk to her several times. As he clung to the girl, she seemed to grow heavier and harder to hold. You did share this.
yeah, I did.
At first, the young man thought this was his imagination. Perhaps he was becoming wary and she just seemed heavier. But as the night wore on, the change in the weight became unmistakable. After a few hours, he felt as if his arms would fall off, yet he couldn't let go, even if he wanted to. As dawn was breaking, the riders reached the town to which the girl had wanted to go. The horse stopped suddenly on its own. It stood frothing and trembling with exhaustion. The young man, too, was trembling, but from fear more than exhaustion.
I'm sorry.
I think she was talking to us.
So,
He was able to loosen his grip on the girl. She tumbled from the horse and sprawled on the ground, lifeless corpse. A small number of early risers in the village witnessed the scene. They did not seem the least surprised. The young man was afraid that they would accuse him of killing the girl. He told them that he had no idea what had happened. He said the girl had been alive and well when he picked her up. Somehow, she had died during the trip. No idea what
sorry, man. I'm trying to share with
had happened.
Go ahead.
I'm hearing voices. My own voice. But the villagers were quick to assure him that he would not be accused of any wrongdoing. The same thing had been happening for years, they said. They told him a strange story. The girl had died 10 years ago, but the family decided to bury her in a cemetery far from her native village. And every year, on the anniversary of her death, she tried to return to her native village in this way. Don't worry, they told him. The girl's relatives would be along shortly to take the corpse back to its distant resting place for another year anyway. The young man continued the rest of his trip during daylight hours only. Don't be surprised if this story sounds familiar to you. It's very like the tale of the Phantom Hitchhiker, the most popular and widespread of all American ghost legends. That is the story of a young man who is driving along a deserted road at night. He stops to pick up a young girl who is hitchhiking. When he gets to his destination, he finds that the girl, whom he thought had been asleep in the back seat, has vanished. Later, he discovers that the girl had been killed 10 years earlier in an auto accident at the very spot in which he had picked her up. On the anniversary of her death, she always tried to hitchhike home. Obviously, neither story is true, but they're always told as if they are. No one seems to know which version of this tale is the original. or if the stories are really related to one another.
Ooh.
Ooh. Oh,
Every,
Some dead bodies in the car on the.
let the bodies hit the floor, let the bodies hit the floor. Okay,
I have seen them set up.
now, we have here Kevin, the Haunted Cane. What is on your
I
screen?
don't know.
Look at this.
Yeah, it's
Look
a
at this.
3D wallpaper.
Are you kidding? Look at this. Oh, sure.
Let me see if I can get it to, there we go.
Oh, man,
It's 3D wallpaper. It's a hand sticking up there and
look at that.
fog rolling
Oh,
out.
that's cool.
Okay, that is super cool. Okay, we got a story. We got story time here,
Okay.
folks, and we have, we still got right around an hour, so we got our stories to tell.
Comment. That's I guess every country, every state, every area has a Phantom Hitchhiker story. So
And
it
a
just
haunted
shows-
bridge.
Yeah, a crybaby bridge or haunted bridge.
Well, I've been to Crab, you saw, I've been to Crab
Yeah,
Bridge.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Which
Okay.
one?
Which one was that? You
That's
found?
Hartsel up in Morgan County.
Yeah.
Okay, story time.
Story
Quit
time.
blabbing, let's go.
Now this is funny because I had heard this story in my neighborhood. You know, urban legends are like that. Every neighborhood has one, just about that creepy house in the corner or whatever. And this
Isn't that your
story-
neighborhood known as your house?
Yeah, mine's the creepy one in my neighborhood.
And he takes pride in it, by the way.
Yeah, I just hope HOA doesn't run me out. But
I'm probably scared of you.
they don't come near my house.
You know, if I had your reputation in your neighborhood, I swear to God, come even Valentine's Day, I'd take the dolls that I didn't like, even if I had to go to a thrift store and buy some dolls that I did not want, for, a few bucks a piece. And I would like stick a knife in them and have blood on them, and I would leave them strategically around the neighborhood.
They probably run me in or something. This is another Daniel Cohen book. This one's called The Headless Roommate and Other Tales
How
of
many of
Terror.
these did he write?
He wrote a bunch. I've got several, but
And I mean, go ahead, I'm sorry, I was gonna look and see when these were written.
he usually wrote them in the 70s and 80s. These are old paperback. But this story, I first heard it in my neighborhood. I knew it wasn't true, but I didn't realize how popular a story it was. And I even found it in this book when I bought it.
Okay, so this was 1987. Okay.
In my neighborhood, her name was Susan. And in fact, I included it in my book, Legends of Indian Narrows. But in this book, it's called The Furry Collar. And I think that's the original name of the story. The Decker house was a big and old and stuck away out in the country type house. Madeline Cartwright was a city girl. Now, Madeline, that's in my neighborhood, it was Susan, but in this story, it's Madeline. Was a city girl who didn't really know what being in the country, out in the country meant. When Madeline's school friend Roberta Decker asked her to spend the Christmas holidays at her house, Madeline thought it would be marvelous. Now, let me correct myself. Roberta was the Susan in my story. I apologize. So Roberta invited Madeline out. So Madeline, her mind was filled with visions of Norman Rockwell country Christmas type houses, horse-drawn sleighs, snow-covered white houses, and church steeples gleaming in the December sun. Nothing in this romantic picture prepared her for the great, gray, gloomy Victorian monstrosity that was the Decker house. It was 20 miles from the nearest town, which itself was gray and gloomy. The house was reached not by a charming horse-drawn sleigh, but by a rusty four-wheel drive Scout. The Christmas snow, which had seemed so charming in the abstract, had, in fact, imprisoned Madeline. Roberta's parents were silent and as gray and gloomy as the house itself. Roberta, so vivacious at school, seemed to adopt the family melancholy when she was at home. But the house was the worst part of it. It was cold, so cold that no amount of heat could overcome the drafts, which stabbed at you at the most unexpected times and places. It was dark. The Deckers seemed not to have heard of anything stronger than a 40-watt bulb, and these were used sparingly. And the house's old boards creaked and groaned alarmingly. The boredom of those 2 weeks was overpowering. Stuck as she was out in the country, there was absolutely nothing for Madeline to do. The snow was far too deep for ordinary walks, and Madeline was not the sort to take up snowshoeing or cross-country skiing, even if such pursuits had been available, which they weren't. Mostly she sat around and read Reader's Digest, condensed novels, the only books available in that house, and watched television in the evenings, though the reception was so poor that the snow on the screen was almost as thick as the snow outside. For a few days, Madeline tried to inject a little cheer into the house, but the sense of depression could not be lifted. She was soon reduced to counting the days until this dreadful vacation would be over and she could get back to the warm sociability of college life. The evening before the eagerly awaited end of her vacation, Roberta's parents announced that they would have to go out to attend some sort of town social function. They said that they didn't think the girls would mind staying at home alone, and that they certainly wouldn't want to spend the evening with a bunch of old folks. To this, Madeline silently agreed. The Deckers weren't much company, and being without them for an evening was no loss as far as she was concerned. Later that evening, Madeline and Roberta were sitting in the living room, trying to read in the 40-watt semi-darkness. The wind had picked up outside and was howling fiercely, and the house grew colder than ever. Madeline was unusually silent, but obviously angry. Finally, Roberta said, "I'm sorry, I never should have invited you here. I know you've had an awful time." Madeline protested weakly, but the protest wasn't believed, nor was it meant to be. "Well, it was selfish of me," Roberta continued, "but I just couldn't face another vacation here alone. You see how it is. It's been this way since I was a child. Getting away to college was the happiest day of my life. Coming back here was like coming back to prison. I panicked, so I dragged you along, thinking that you would make it better for me. Actually, it's made it worse for both of us." Madeline began to thaw a bit. She could understand how poor Roberta had felt. Besides, this was the last night. "Well, it's been a very interesting experience," she said, trying to be polite. Just then, there was a tremendous gust of wind and all the lights went out. "There's a curse word, damn," said Roberta. "Must be a power line down somewhere. I've never seen a curse word."
It is not approved, folks. Don't buy that crap.
It
I have
happened.
heard a lot worse from him than just that word, geez.
Must be a power line down somewhere. It happens 2 or 3 times every winter.
What?
How long will the lights be out? Well, it's hard to tell, a few hours at least. We may just as well go to bed unless you want to sit up and read by candlelight. Madeline didn't relish that idea. She was sick of Reader's Digest novels anyway. But she didn't relish the idea of returning to her own pitch dark room alone either. In fact, she was downright scared. Roberta almost seemed to read her thoughts. "Why don't you spend the night in my room? The bed's plenty big enough for 2. This place is pretty creepy when it's pitch dark. There are all sorts of strange noises, particularly if you're not used to them." That was exactly what Madeline wanted, and she felt so grateful to Roberta for knowing it that she practically hugged her. Madeline didn't even bother going back to her own room. She just borrowed Roberta's pajamas and slipped gingerly between the chilly, slightly damp sheets. "Just lie still, it'll be warm in a few minutes," she thought to herself. And it was. But Madeline still had trouble getting to sleep. It was too early. She lay there in the dark, listening to all the creaks and groans of the old house. Just ordinary noises, she told herself. Just ordinary noises. Then there was a noise that wasn't at all ordinary. A loud crashing sound that could have been a door being torn open. "What was that?" shouted Madeline. Dad must have forgotten to lock the kitchen door and the wind blew it open," said Roberta, matter-of-factly. I'd better go downstairs and fix it. Don't go and leave me here alone in the dark. I have to go unless you want to have the door thumping all night, or unless you want to go downstairs with me. Madeline didn't like that either. She didn't like either of those alternatives. All right, but don't be long. Being here alone in the dark scares me. Roberta got out of bed, and by the moonlight filtering through the bedroom window, Madeline could see her putting on her robe. Madeline knew the robe well because it was a rather unusual one, floor-length and made of green velvet with a big furry collar. The robe would have been memorable on anyone, but it was particularly so on Roberta, who was usually dressed very simply. Madeline had often wondered where Roberta had gotten that extravagant bit of clothing and decided to ask her as soon as she got back. Hurry now, Madeline said. I'll be back in a minute, was Roberta's reply as she closed the bedroom door behind her. A minute went by and more, much more. There wasn't a sound except the creaking and groaning of the old house and the howling of the wind. Madeline felt like calling out to Roberta, but was afraid to. What if that alerted someone or something that she was up there alone? And so she waited in silence. After a while, there was a noise, a faint shuffling sound that rose above the house noises and the wind. Someone or something was moving toward the stairs. Then it was on the stairs, and she could hear them creak under the weight of the step. Once again, Madeline felt like calling out, but the word Roberta got stuck in her throat. Whatever it was reached the top of the stairs and began shuffling down the hall toward the bedroom. Was the shuffling sound made by Roberta's slippered feet or by something else? Madeline waited, rigid with fear. The doorknob creaked, and she could hear the door slowly being pushed open. But that end of the room was absolutely dark, and she could see nothing. The shuffling footsteps began again and moved toward the bed until whatever it was stood at the side of the bed next to Madeline. There was complete silence. Madeline reached out and touched the figure by the bed. She felt the velvety material of her friend's robe. Almost hysterical with relief, Madeline grabbed the robe with one hand and with the other reached higher and higher until she felt the familiar furry collar. Then she reached a little higher and felt the bloody stump where her friend's head had been. And that's where it ends.
That's just a sweet, sweet story. Was that Daniel Cohen?
Yep, that's Daniel Cohen.
For your information, if you didn't know, he died May 6, 2018.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, man.
So he will write no more books. It may haunt somebody. And they might write a book
He
about
might
it.
be haunting his old typewriter or computer or something.
So is anybody enjoying these stories? I hope. Give us
I
a
hope
thumbs
so.
up. Thumbs up. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Now, chapter 6, the demon course.
Oh, I've shared this one on my channel.
Okay. Kevin's unburied. Oh, that's that. I'm sorry. In China, an unburied body was once thought to be very dangerous. When a person dies, the spirit leaves the body. The body is then like an unoccupied house. Anyone, or in this case, anything, might take possession of
Oh,
it.
that makes sense though.
The Chinese believed that the air was filled with invisible spirits and demons. I do too. It's real heavy in this area over here.
I mean,
One of these might take possession. We'll talk about this when I get through my story. teeth.
Jeez.
One of these might take possession of any unattended corpse. Any unattended corpse. Okay. The corpse could then be brought back to a sort of life. We're talking about zombies here, but it would no longer be the person who had previously inhabited the body. It would then be a creature called a Chang Chish. Sheech. Chang Sheet. Shit. I don't speak Chinese.
Yeah.
That was an awful looking thing with glowing eyes, long dagger-like nails, and a greenish skin. The breath of such a monster is deadly. There's no story about 4 travelers. They stopped at a roadside inn and asked for a place to sleep, but the inn was completely full. The travelers had come a long way and were very tired, and it was starting to rain. The travelers begged the innkeeper to let them sleep someplace, any place. Finally, the innkeeper said there was a shed out back they might sleep in. It wasn't very comfortable, but it was a roof over their heads. What the innkeeper did not tell these 4 travelers was that his daughter-in-law had just died. Her body was in that shed. It was stretched out on a plank behind a curtain. When the travelers entered the shed, they didn't see the corpse. 3 of the travelers fell asleep at once. The 4th was uneasy, nervous. He couldn't get to sleep. He knew something was wrong. He just didn't know what it was. As you might expect, the corpse had been invaded by a demon. It had become a Chang Sheech. When the corpse thought that the travelers were asleep, it got up. It carefully peered out from behind the curtains. The 4th traveler, the one who could not sleep, saw the bony hand draw back the curtains. He was too frightened by the sight to move. He just lay there pretending to be asleep. The creature leaned over each one of the sleeping travelers. As it did, it breathed on them. They died without waking up. When it approached the one traveler who had not fallen asleep, he kept his eyes tightly shut and held his breath, and that saved his life. The corpse then returned to its place behind the curtain, and when the surviving traveler thought it was safe, he jumped up and ran toward the door. But he made too much noise. The corpse heard him, chased after him. The fleeing man could not see the eyes of the creature glowing in the darkness behind him. He knew it was catching up to him. He ducked behind the large tree to try and hide from it. He peered carefully around the tree to see if it was gone. It wasn't. He found himself looking directly into the glowing eyes. The thing was no more than 3 feet away. It let out a horrible shriek and jumped at him. He collapsed in a dead faint. That saved his life again. When he fell, the corpse missed him. It plunged forward with such force that it buried its long nails into the trunk of the tree. It was stuck. The next morning, when the innkeeper went to the shed to see about the travelers, he found 3 dead men. He guessed what had happened. Then he went looking for the 4th man. He found the man unconscious on the ground near the tree. The corpse was there too, now truly and completely dead. Its long nails were still stuck in the tree. A story first told in China about 250 years ago tells of a similar but even more fearful creature. This thing was supposed to have haunted a Buddhist temple. The creature so awful that the temple was deserted at night. No one had ever actually seen the thing in the temple. They only heard it. They were too frightened to stay around and find out what it looked like. One evening, a shepherd asked permission to sleep in the temple. He wanted to stay close to his sheep, which were under the temple porch. The priest warned him that something awful might happen, but the shepherd went in anyway. He was a very brave man, and he carried only a candle and a whip. Because of all the awful things he had been told about the temple, the shepherd was not able to sleep. Around midnight, he heard noises. They seemed to be coming from beneath one of the temple statues. He lighted his candle In the dim light, he could see a gigantic figure with great claws and a greenish skin. Its breath smelled like a rotting corpse. The monster attacked, but the shepherd was very quick. He managed to evade the claws. The shepherd struck at the thing with his whip. It didn't seem to feel the blows. It just kept coming after him. So the shepherd fled from the temple, leaving his sheep behind. When it became light, the shepherd went back to the temple. It was empty, but there was a strange and evil-smelling mist drifting from the cracked stone floor near some of the statues. It was at the spot where the shepherd had first seen the creature. Digging or in any other way disrupting a temple was a very serious offense in China. The shepherd had to ask the local judge for permission. When he told the judge what he had seen, why he wanted to dig up the stone floor, permission was granted at once. When the stones were removed, the diggers found the mummified corpse of a gigantic man. The corpse fitted the description that had been given by the shepherd. The priest said that the only way to get rid of such a monster was to burn it. A large fire was built. The giant corpse was thrown onto it. The corpse crackled and burned in the fire. It screamed and thrashed about. But soon, there was nothing left but ashes. The temple was never troubled again. Can I get an amen? Okay, we're back to Kevin. You found another story for us?
Yes.
And what's the name of this book?
Is Southern Fried Rat and Other Gruesome Tales.
Is this also Daniel?
And Daniel Cody.
He wrote a bunch of freaking books.
He wrote up my Jack Evans.
He died, huh?
I hate that I thought he had already passed though, but
2018. 2018.
I kept thinking it was a long time
Yeah,
ago.
May 6th, almost 2 years ago. Dang. Oh, dang.
I like Daniel. I had a lot. I read these when I was a kid in the library, and I
Well, clearly, that's not unusual because you do like dead people. Have you read my book, Dating the Dead, yet? That would maybe you find a
I
girlfriend?
haven't read it yet.
Sorry.
You need to read it. It's pretty good.
It is good. You gotta read
Okay.
it.
Okay.
By the way, datingthedead.com. I have several books on Amazon.com. Just look under Dr. Kelsey Graham. My buddy Kevin has a bunch of books on Amazon. But let me tell you something. We would prefer that you order directly from us, right? Wouldn't you prefer that you order directly?
Yeah,
Because we make more money. When we
we
sell through Amazon, they really cut into it. So if you buy from us, we'll also take out one of these devices right here
call a pen or a
and
marker.
autograph it. And if you're anywhere in the Birmingham area, Middle Alabama, buy one of each of our books. We'll hop in the car together. We'll come meet you, take selfies, sign books, bring your friends, and we'll bring a book for each one of them. And we'll give you a special discount, free shipping.
Yeah.
Okay, myhaunteddogs.com, My Haunted Dogs Kevin Kane on YouTube, My Haunted Dogs everywhere. Just look for Kevin Kane's My Haunted Dogs. There he is. Obviously, with figures like him, you can't miss him, right? I can talk because I have my own issue going here.
Yeah.
Did you guys introduce Virginia?
No, we're gonna do that in a minute. I'm selling right now. I gotta pay the bill.
Virginia.
We have our own advertising going on.
Don't forget.
Abnormal Alabama on YouTube. I need subscribers. I noticed that you're inching very close to that 1,000. Come on,
Yeah.
guys, help this guy out. If he's gonna do he don't know it yet, but he's gonna do a special video to get all his subscribers to come over to Abnormal Alabama and equally subscribe. And everybody that subscribes to my channel, he's gonna give a free book and dog. Is that right?
I'm a dog, but I can do a book.
Okay. All right.
I can't
So-
give up my dogs.
He's not gonna give up the dog. And we're gonna tell a story about this other dog you cannot see in the camera right now, but that story is gonna be told in a moment. AbnormalAlabama.com, Abnormal Alabama, which I'm streaming right here on Facebook, Abnormal Alabama on YouTube. And we are gonna start a new program. I don't know how quick, but pretty soon. We're gonna start doing some EVP and spirit boxes, not just with dogs. In fact, yeah, we got time. Instead of doing a story, you want to do some EVP work with these guys?
We could,
And what's this girl's name?
Virginia,
Virginia.
Virginia? Is she from Virginia?
no.
Oh, okay.
She's from Alba Heights, Alabama.
All right, real quick, we've been sharing stories. These are neat little books with neat little stories. He's compiled them from urban legends around the world, I
Yeah.
guess. And poor Daniel Cohen died May 6th of 2018. He was a very prolific author and probably would have given Kevin some competition on books.
Probably.
So anyway, if you want to, instead of doing another story, unless you want to read another story, we got 30 minutes. She's gonna tell a story about who's
Yeah,
what's
let's
the
go
name?
ahead and get some do this, because
Not
time
Vir-
flies when you're doing spirit box. so-
Virginia, is there something special to share about Virginia?
Virginia's owner was named Jenny, which Virginia's what her real name was.
And here she
And they call her
is.
Jenny.
There she is.
And look at those cute little feet.
Right.
They kind of look like an old lady's foot.
She does have a cry box in her, but
Both these dolls have voice boxes and both of them are damaged.
well, no, she works, but she only works occasionally when she wants to.
So it's got batteries and whatnot?
No, it's a cry box.
Oh, okay, so it's one of those,
Yeah.
okay.
You just tilt it back and forth. Well, Jenny owned her, and Jenny's parents passed away in a car wreck, leaving her an orphan.
Oh,
And Jenny had the doll since she was little, and Jenny wound up dying of a heart attack, back in the 90s. And my aunt had the doll, and it was my aunt's daughter, which would have been my cousin, and I just inherited her last week, I think
Okay.
it was.
So you're gonna start doing some spirit boxes with your dolls like Kevin does?
I can, yes.
Okay. So now, why don't we get cranked up here? And there
Okay.
are three of us to listen carefully, plus our audience on the cybernets. Listen carefully. Kevin is the expert. And do you know what an expert is?
I guess somebody that specializes in a
No,
certain
an
thing.
X is a has-been. An
Ah,
expert's a drip under pressure.
oh,
So
okay.
our has-been drip under pressure knows all about this. Now is this a EVP or a spirit box?
It's spirit auction.
It's a phenomenon,
It's phenomenon.
phenomenon.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know how loud it'll be without a speaker on.
So can we address both the dolls at one time? Or can you
I
do
would
them?
think so. See
Okay.
which one wants to talk.
All right, so everybody, let's get in the mindset. So all our viewers there, let's do the We gotta get everything peaceful and quiet. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy crap. Oh, Holy Spirit. I'm sorry.
Lightning's gonna come through that window.
It'll just get healed.
I don't know. You may get
Yeah.
confused. We're both got about the same bodies anymore.
Ah,
I still ain't caught up.
He's got more hair than you.
Yeah. God made some heads perfect.
this is real.
God made some heads perfect.
My papa was 93 when he died, still had a head full of hair,
Yeah.
his own hair.
Yours is still getting kind
So
of thin over there.
he still had to get haircuts. He got fit. He had to go, get a cut. Okay, so I hope
We
we
got
can.
gray hair. Just like
Yeah, I got a little gray in there, so what? There we go.
He's pushing 50
No, I'm not. I'm 40.
He's barely.
now. He's Elvis's age. You gonna make it through this year?
I bet. I hope so. All righty.
Okay.
Here we go.
Oh, the story. I meant to mention this. That was Madeline. Don't you have a doll named Madeline?
No, I have a dog named Madeline.
I don't think I have a Madeline.
Okay, that's fine.
I have a
Caroline's,
cat named Maddie.
Our clock is ticking. It's 8 o'clock.
Caroline's sister's name is Madeline.
Oh.
One is the baby.
Here, let me try this. Oh, there, it kicked on. Is there anybody here who wants to talk to us? Actually, I should specified. Tony, are you here? I said, Tony. Tony. Oh, there you are. Can you say hello, Tony? Please say hello. She said, hey, I heard that. Are you 11, Tony? What are you doing over there? I don't know if they can hear this on.
Yeah, I just picked it up here.
Oh, okay.
That's why I was trying to make sure.
Tony, where did you live? We ain't never gonna hear it because you over there. Where did you live, Tony?
Who said I live? Lying around.
Did something happen to you in the water? Yes. She's trying to talk. You were scared? Scared?
No, I heard no.
What did you hear?
Scared of water.
Oh. Well, I'm sorry that happened to you. Are you happy now? Has my cat Maddie been bothering you? No, that was quick. Because Maddie climbs on your shelf sometimes, doesn't she? She thinks I don't know, but I see when she's been up there. Yes. Is Maddie the one that keeps dragging the little teddy bear out into the kitchen? Is somebody giving her the teddy bear to play with?
What was that?
Madeline.
Madeline. Did you say Madeline? Did my story scare you? You said. See if that'll help. Does that help you speak better? Let me slow that down. There we go. That might be better. Is Virginia here too?
I don't believe everyone. You hear that?
I didn't.
Did you hear?
What did it say?
I don't believe everyone. You were looking for an answer instead of listening. Said very clearly.
Yeah, I was listening for the girl.
Yeah, he said, I don't believe everyone.
Virginia, are you here? Jenny, are you here? You have children.
Yes.
Can you say your children's names? What's your daughter's name? Heather. My name is what?
I heard a male voice. My name is.
Jenny, is your daughter with you?
Where did you live, Jenny? Woodchuck. How much chuck does a woodchuck chuck?
Are you talking about Chucky? Yep. Do these girls want to spend the night with Chucky? Oh, they got wild Tims. Is Chucky a player?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You think these girls are innocent?
Let's see.
How long has these girls? Tony, how long have you been dead? Tony, how long have you been deceased? Do you hear anything? 19? So what you said, 19? Were you 19 when you died, or were you 19 if you lived?
on the 19, if she 20.
So how old, if you had not died, how old would you be now? What?
47?
Okay,
14.
so you know what a player is.
You know,
47.
Tony, do you know what a player is?
If she was 11,
Tony,
I'm trying to get this, okay. If she was 47 and that's 1970 something dollars, that's about right.
yeah. So Tony, you in the spirit world, you get to see everything, right? So if you're a spirit, you even see him of a toilet.
Did
Is that
she say
right,
of
Tony?
course?
Yes.
Tony.
Do you watch him on the hopper?
Sure. I swear it's
I knew
sure.
Tony was a perverted dog.
She is not a per Tony. Don't
Okay.
listen to this dirty old man.
Let me ask you this, Tony. Do you see people that recently passed away?
So Tony, it seems like you got more active when we talked about you watching our friend Kevin as he runs around the house naked. Yeah. So Tony,
I think she said Bob. So I'm letting Bob go ahead.
I agree. Bob.
Tony, the question is that does he run around the house naked all the time? Sure.
She didn't say
She
sure.
said no. So, do you see people like when Kobe Bryant passed away?
Is Kobe there with you? So Tony, the real question is
Give it time.
why are you talking to us and not Steve Huff?
I swear it said Dr. Graham.
I thought it said who there.
What do you have to tell us from the other side?
Somebody said you need to clarify that. I heard somebody say dead.
Okay, so when you're in that eternal state, we're in a mortal state, you're in a spiritual state.
Really? She said.
Yeah, really. So the question is can you tell when like Kevin's gonna die? Sure. So okay, when's Kevin gonna die?
Very happy. Thank you.
He's gonna die happy? Why? Because he's got a house full of dogs?
Really?
Yeah. Is this silly man getting on your nerves, Tony? Uh-huh.
The question
He is.
The question I've really got, Tony, is
She's a
You're-
child.
Tony, she's 40-something years old.
She was 11.
She's been around longer than you have. Well, she died, but she's been around all this time. Do you think they remain innocent all that time?
When they died at 11, I think so, yeah.
I don't think so. I think they see everything. They see him on the hopper. Jeez.
I think that.
It's just like God.
Abnormal Alabama. That's why this show is called that.
When he,
Uh-oh.
when, what is it?
Thought it stopped.
No. So,
What's up?
so here's the deal. When he is playing with himself, for sure, lack of a better word,
Okay.
do y'all watch him?
People on this. They're not gonna answer your dirty questions.
Tony, do you like dirty talk?
She said fools.
At least I'm getting them agitated where they'll talk to you. Okay, Virginia,
Agitated. Did you hear it say agitated?
Virginia, You've been quiet, Virginia.
Start to say, "Oh, really?"
What can either one of you girls tell us that we should know about the afterlife? You don't fart?
It really did sound like whatever, don't fart. Sorry.
See? So Virginia, Tony, you guys are not near as pure as he would like us to believe, are you?
I believe. 11.
Okay, guys, you gotta quit talking on top of each other, one at a time.
That was a no.
Excuse me.
Tony, are you still a child?
Ugh. All three.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Tony, we just have like 13 minutes left. We would like to hear something profound from you, other than him in the bathroom.
If you had a name for this man here, what would you say that name is?
Right.
Baldy.
Apropos. Perfect, perfect.
Is there anybody here other than Tony and Jenny?
Yeah. How many spirits are here?
27. Yeah, 27. What did you say?
Do they all like Burger King?
So are all 27 of y'all spirits live with Kevin? Or some of you just Burger King spirits? So when Kevin leaves here, are all y'all gonna get in the car with him and go home?
I don't know. You're a belch.
And it wasn't me.
I know one thing. When he goes home and he goes to the toilet, he's gonna be thinking,
No, I'm not. Somebody left.
Okay, there's 27 spirits here. How many of you live at Burger King?
one.
I heard my name. I keep hearing the name Amber.
So I wonder if someone live in that,
It could.
in your subdivision.
Oh, I don't know.
Jenny, sure. Tony, do you get tired of standing all the time?
She said something about I sit. She sits at home. Somebody said something about not Tony.
Spirits don't need, do spirits need to sleep? Or eat? Or pee?
No.
I'm asking.
Somebody said yes.
Is there a spirit bathroom? So do you think spirits can go through walls?
I think so, yeah.
So that kind of defeats the purpose of hell, right? I mean, right?
Think when hell are trapped in there, they ain't gonna cross anything.
I just want to, out of curiosity, try this new one that I just got.
Okay. Well, let me
Okay, we're gonna cut this one off.
cut this one off, so y'all back away from this one.
Good night. Oh, we're gonna be back.
But
Hold that
don't
thought,
go
Tony.
anywhere, but just let me
Tony,
turn
Tony,
this
clear
one
your
on.
mind. Clear your mind, Tony.
3, 2, 1.
Yes, Tony. He's not going to the bathroom. Just relax.
Just out of curiosity, I want to see how this one works.
Do you talk to little children with that potty mouth?
That's 40-something years old.
Oh,
She said
my.
it. You skull loving cigar
That's a
smoking.
red man.
Is that lousy?
Is anybody there? Just wanted to try.
Tony, we're trying a new one. Give us a sign. Can you say Kevin?
Maybe I don't like it.
We can try my other one, the PSB.
Yeah, we got a few minutes here. So let's experiment.
Let's see if the old PSB 77 will work. Now, it's a little bit irritating noise, so.
Oh, that sounds like a real spirit box.
Hey, Tony. Can you speak through this one? Hello?
Good, yeah. The people have gotten better responses from the other ones.
Yeah.
I think the original ones work better than any of these. That's what we think.
Say your name for me. Tony, try to speak through this. Is Jenny here?
I did not have sex with that woman.
I don't think this one's as good. There's little blips when I look at radio frequency or what.
I've got, the Hack Shack.
Let's see, it's 825.
Is anybody here? Anyone try this one? This one's scanning through all the radio stations. Kevin, I think that first one that you had was the best one.
So,
Here's another one we're trying real quick before we go. Okay, Tony, we're trying a new app. Please communicate with us. If you are there, give us a sign.
Sound like your voice, Tony.
Who is your owner? I keep saying Chucky.
I keep hearing Chucky say,
You just hear what you want.
Oh, so we're wasting our time.
Yeah.
Okay, so girls, are y'all wanting to see Chucky? He's got Chucky at home, right? Y'all miss Chucky, Tony? Tony. So what are you and Chucky doing at 3 o'clock in the morning? Why is your dress wrinkled? Your hair is out of what?
He's so disrespectful.
I'm trying to get her to communicate.
Sorry, do you know which doll is the Chucky doll?
That other one is the best one so far. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the one.
We've experimented. Of course, there's a ton of these apps out there. And so far, what was the name of the one that worked the best?
Sono X12.
Which we can't find
Not
anymore.
on the,
So
I'll make sure I keep it on here.
anyway, we played around with some of those. A couple of good stories we shared.
Yeah.
When we first got here, there were 3, like, I guess, teenage girls, high school age, that wanted to look at the dolls, but they were scared to death. They didn't want to take any home with them or anything.
No.
And the stories, one of them I know that you had shared before, that I repeated, but I think the other 2.
Ride for the corpse.
Yeah. So anyway, we got about a minute or so left. MyHauntedDolls.com. My Haunted Dolls on YouTube, Kevin Kane, and My Haunted Dolls, I guess, on Facebook.
Yep.
Just go to his website and you can find all this stuff, I'm sure. And he does a lot of video stuff. He puts out a lot of podcasts, telling stories. He writes a lot of books. He's working in his 12th book. He was supposed to co-author a book, but his co-author has not done anything recently.
yes, she has.
Yeah.
She wrote
So-
the story out of Caroline's birth.
Okay,
Oh.
so the next thing we've got is we're gonna have some fun next. I like doing some of the spirit box stuff. Do you have your regular spirit radio? I don't know if I can find mine. It's in one of my boxes. I'll see.
Mine's in my bag. at
But I
home.
enjoy doing that, and I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Tony, please ignore him. I mean,
Ignore him. She knows not to ignore
he is, he's just a little child that smokes cigars and curses.
me. I don't smoke. I haven't smoked a cigar in 2 years. So
Has it been that long?
yeah.
You want a good Cuban cigar?
I haven't had a Cuban one yet because we can't get them here.
Oh, yeah, you can. Now you can.
Where can you get
Obama
'em?
opened it all up.
Where do you get it? I know the ones I see you can order are expensive as all
Yeah,
get out.
I don't know if they're really worth it. It's like when I was a kid, what was that? Coors or whatever, you couldn't get in Alabama, you had to come from out west. Was it Coors?
I don't know.
Anyway, anybody that went out like toward Denver, that-
Coors is a bigger.
I know what I'm talking about is beer. It's
Ah.
like, and the same thing with cigars. It's like if you can't get it, everybody wants it. And then it's like, once you try it, it's like, what's the big deal? Cuba's got this reputation for cigars, but I'm just not that big connoisseur on it. You know, like, freaking cigar. Some are mild, some are whatever. Anyway, Kevin Kane, My Haunted Dolls, Abnormal Alabama. He needs less than 20 new subscribers on his YouTube channel. Once he gets those less than 20 more subscribers, he can drive down the road and he can talk to you on YouTube. He can sit on his toilet and talk to you on YouTube. Tony has to put up with it. Why not you too?
And we need to get, since she's said your new name, we need to get a new website for you called baldy.com.
Abnormal Baldy.
Abnormal Baldy.
Abnormal Baldy. Okay, it's quitting time, folks. Y'all have a great evening, and we're gonna get out of here. The cleaning crew has already started. And, good night. Share, like, all the above.